The morning air hung thick with hostility. As Maya Thompson adjusted the hidden camera in her uniform button, her fingers steady despite the bile rising in her throat. 3 weeks into her undercover assignment at the Harrington estate, and already she had documented enough abuse to shut down the entire agency. But today would push her to limits she hadn't imagined. "You're late," Mrs. Harrington's voice sliced through the foyer like a whip. The 60-year-old socialite stood at the top of the marble staircase, her face twisted with disgust as she looked down at Maya. "5 minutes late. I suppose punctuality isn't something your people understand." Maya glanced at her watch, 6:55 a.m. She was 5 minutes early. "I apologize, Mrs. Harrington. My watch must be—" "Don't lie to me." The woman descended the stairs, each click of her heels echoing like a judge's gavel. "And don't speak unless spoken to. You're here to care for my mother, not to make excuses." The irony burned. Maya held a master's degree in criminal justice and had spent 7 years investigating elder abuse cases. The Harrington family had multiple complaints against them, particularly regarding their treatment of black caregivers. Reading the reports had been disturbing. Living them was soul-crushing. If you believe everyone deserves dignity, regardless of race, hit subscribe. Help us expose injustice wherever it hides. Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield, the 90-year-old matriarch Maya was assigned to care for, sat in her wheelchair by the window. Unlike her daughter, Eleanor's eyes held a gentleness that seemed at odds with the poison that filled this house. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitfield," Maya said softly, approaching the elderly woman. "Don't use that tone with her," Mrs. Harrington snapped. "She's not some child, and put on gloves before you touch her. God knows what diseases you people carry." Maya's jaw clenched as she pulled on the latex gloves, a requirement only for her, never for the white caregivers who worked other shifts. She began the morning routine, checking vitals, preparing breakfast, administering medications. Throughout it all, Mrs. Harrington hovered, her comments a constant assault. "Watch your hands, mother. They steal, you know. Don't let her near your jewelry. Make sure she doesn't use our bathroom. There's a servant's toilet in the basement." Each word was carefully recorded by the hidden camera, evidence mounting with every interaction. Maya felt the weight of them settling in her stomach like stones, but kept her face neutral. 3 weeks of practice had perfected her mask of calm submission. The morning stretched on, minutes ticking by like hours. Maya helped Eleanor with her physical therapy exercises, the old woman's frail body moving slowly under her guidance. She could feel Mrs. Harrington's eyes on her back, watching for any mistake, any excuse to express her contempt. At noon, Maya's phone vibrated silently in her pocket. She knew not to answer it in front of Mrs. Harrington. Any connection to the outside world was treated as a personal affront. She waited until Eleanor was settled for her midday rest before stepping into the hallway, checking to ensure she was alone. The caller ID showed her father's doctor. Her heart immediately tightened. "Hello," she whispered, one eye on the doorway. The news came like a physical blow. Stage 4. Spreading rapidly. Days, maybe a week left. Her father wanted to see her one last time. Maya ended the call, pressing her forehead against the cool wall of the hallway, fighting for composure. Her father, who had raised her alone after her mother died, who had worked 3 jobs to put her through college, who had beamed with pride at her graduation from the academy. Her father, who was now asking for her, his voice too weak to speak on the phone himself. She took a deep breath, straightened her uniform, and went to find Mrs. Harrington. She found her in the study, writing checks for her numerous charity organizations, causes that supposedly fought inequality while she perpetuated it daily in her own home. "Mrs. Harrington," Maya began, her voice careful, deferential. "I need to request emergency leave. My father is in the hospital, terminal cancer. The doctors say he doesn't have much time, and I'd like to say goodbye." Mrs. Harrington didn't look up from her checkbook. "Absolutely not. The charity gala is this weekend, and Mother needs round-the-clock care." "It's just for 2 days. I can arrange for a replacement from the agency." "Do you know how much work goes into an event like this?" Mrs. Harrington finally looked up, her face a mask of irritation. "The house must be immaculate. Mother must be presentable. I can't have some stranger who doesn't know our routines messing everything up." "My father is dying," Maya said, fighting to keep her voice even. It's always something with you people, isn't it? Mrs. Harrington sighed dramatically. A cousin's funeral, a brother's court date, a father's, whatever. If you leave, consider yourself terminated. Maya felt something crack inside her chest. Not just anger, but a crystalline clarity. In that moment, she saw Mrs. Harrington for exactly what she was. Not powerful, but pathetic. A small, cruel woman whose only joy came from exerting control over others. Mrs. Harrington, this is my father. He might not last the week. And this is a job you're lucky to have. She returned to her checkbook, dismissing Maya with a flick of her manicured hand. Mother needs her medication every 4 hours, her meals at exact times. Your family problems aren't our concern. Share this story to stand against racism. Silence enables abuse. Maya returned to Eleanor's room, her body on autopilot as her mind raced. The old woman was awake, watching her with those perceptive eyes that seemed to see everything. "What's wrong, dear?" Eleanor asked, her voice thin but kind. "You look pale." Maya hesitated. Speaking honestly to Eleanor could jeopardize the investigation. But something in the old woman's expression invited confidence. "My father is dying," she said simply. "I just found out he might not make it through the week." Eleanor reached out, her paper-thin skin cool against Maya's hand. "Then you should be with him. Your daughter made it clear that's not an option." "Patricia doesn't speak for me." Eleanor's eyes hardened slightly. "I've watched how she treats you. It's shameful." "It's how it is," Maya said, the words bitter on her tongue. "It shouldn't be." Eleanor squeezed her hand with surprising strength. "I was raised in a different time, with different ideas, but I've lived long enough to know wrong when I see it." The afternoon unfolded in its usual routine. Maya prepared Eleanor's lunch, helped her with her medication, read to her from her favorite poetry collection. All the while her phone felt heavy in her pocket, the knowledge of her father waiting for her, time slipping away. At 3 o'clock, as Maya was helping Eleanor change for her afternoon nap, Mrs. Harrington burst into the room, her face contorted with rage. "My diamond earrings are missing," she announced, stalking toward Maya. "Empty your pockets, now." Maya stood perfectly still, the accusation hanging in the air like smoke. "Mrs. Harrington, I haven't been near your room. Empty them." She grabbed Maya's arm with surprising strength, her nails digging into flesh. "I knew we couldn't trust your kind. Thieves, all of you." Eleanor tried to intervene from her wheelchair. "Patricia, please." Maya wouldn't. "Shut up, Mother. You're too senile to see what's happening under your own roof." Mrs. Harrington turned back to Maya, her voice dropping to a dangerous hiss. "Strip. I want to search you properly." The moment crystallized, sharp as broken glass. Maya thought of her father, waiting for her in a hospital bed. She thought of the dozens of caregivers who had suffered this woman's abuse before her. She thought of the evidence already collected, the testimony already gathered. Enough was enough. "Mrs. Harrington, I need to tell you something." "The only thing you need to tell me is where you hid my earrings, you thieving." "I'm a federal investigator." Maya's voice cut through the room like a blade. She reached into her pocket and produced her badge. "I've been documenting your treatment of caregivers for the past 3 weeks." The color drained from Mrs. Harrington's face, her mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled suddenly from water. You can't. This is entrapment." "No, ma'am. This is accountability." Maya touched her uniform button, revealing the hidden camera. "Everything has been recorded. Your racist comments, your abuse, your violations of employment law, including your refusal to allow me to see my dying father. Have you witnessed discrimination? Report it. Comment below with your experiences. Together, we can create change." Mrs. Harrington stumbled backward, her carefully maintained composure crumbling into dust. "I want you out of my house. You deceived me. This is illegal." "What's illegal?" Maya said, stepping forward, "is your systematic abuse of workers based on their race. What's illegal is wage theft, which we've documented extensively. What's illegal is creating a hostile work environment. I'll sue you. I'll have your badge. My husband. Your husband is already being questioned by my colleagues." Maya pulled out her phone, sending a pre-arranged signal. "And my team is already here with warrants for this property." The front door opened, and the sound of multiple footsteps echoed through the mansion's marble foyer. Mrs. Harrington's face contorted with disbelief as federal agents entered the bedroom, led by Maya's supervisor, Agent Rodriguez. Patricia Harrington, Rodriguez said, holding up a document. We have a warrant to search these premises and to seize all relevant documents related to the employment of household staff over the past 10 years. This is ridiculous. You can't. We can, and we are. Rodriguez turned to Maya. You okay? Fine, Maya said, her voice steady. But I need to leave, my father. Go, Rodriguez said immediately. We've got this covered. There's a car waiting for you outside. Maya turned to Eleanor, who was watching the scene unfold with a mixture of shock and what looked strangely like relief. Mrs. Whitfield, go to your father, Eleanor said firmly, and know that not all of us are like her. Maya nodded, removed her apron, and walked out of the room without a backward glance at Mrs. Harrington, whose protests had devolved into incoherent shrieks as agents began photographing the room and documenting evidence. The hospital was quiet when Maya arrived. The antiseptic smell, a sharp contrast to the cloying perfume of the Harrington estate. Her father's room was at the end of a long corridor, the soft beeping of machines growing louder as she approached. He looked so small in the hospital bed, his once powerful frame withered by illness. But her eyes, lit up when she entered, and his hand reached for hers. You came, he whispered, his voice a pale shadow of the rich baritone she remembered. Wild horses couldn't keep me away, she said, clasping his hand between both of hers. I'm sorry it took so long. Your work, he said, understanding immediately. The case? Breaking as we speak, she confirmed, managing a smile. It's a big one, Dad. It's going to help a lot of people. His eyes, though clouded with pain, shone with pride. Tell me. So she did. As the afternoon turned to evening and then to night, she told him everything. About the investigation, about the evidence collected, about the changes it would bring. She told him about Eleanor, about the other caregivers who had come forward, about the systemic changes they were fighting for. He listened, occasionally squeezing her hand, occasionally closing his eyes as pain washed through him. But he listened. You remember what I taught you? He asked during one of the quiet moments. Which part? She asked, smiling through tears. About dignity. No one can take it unless you let them. I remember. You never let them, he said, his voice suddenly stronger. Even when you were pretending to submit, you kept your dignity. I'm so proud of you. He died at dawn, his hands still in hers, the first rays of sunlight painting the hospital room in gold. Maya sat with him long after, thanking him silently for the strength he had given her, for the moral compass that had guided her through darkness. The Harrington case exploded across national media. Former employees came forward with their own stories, creating a damning picture of systematic abuse spanning decades. Mrs. Harrington's social circle abandoned her as quickly as rats fleeing a sinking ship. The charity boards demanded her resignation. Her husband's company faced a federal investigation into discriminatory hiring practices. 6 months later, Maya stood in a crowded courtroom as the verdict was read. Mrs. Harrington, dressed in designer clothes that seemed to hang oddly on her diminished frame, stood as the judge pronounced her guilty on all counts. The sentence was harsh but just: prison time, substantial fines, and restitution to the dozens of workers she had abused over the years. As Mrs. Harrington was led away in handcuffs, she locked eyes with Maya across the courtroom. The hatred was still there, burning in her gaze, but it was impotent now, defeated. Maya didn't look away, didn't flinch. She had nothing to hide. Outside, the media waited with cameras and microphones. Maya stepped to the podium, composed and professional in her federal agent's suit, so different from the caregiver's uniform she had worn for those 3 painful weeks. This case isn't just about one woman's racism, she told the gathered reporters. It's about a system that allowed it to flourish unchecked for decades. It's about agencies that ignored complaints from workers of color. It's about a society that looks away when the victims aren't the right color or class. Thank you for witnessing Maya's fight for justice. Subscribe for more stories of courage against discrimination. Share this video to support those battling workplace racism. The Harrington case became a catalyst for change. New laws were passed protecting domestic workers and caregivers. Agencies faced stricter oversight and mandatory bias training. Most importantly, workers began to speak up, knowing they wouldn't be ignored. Eleanor Whitfield, freed from her daughter's toxic control, established a foundation supporting caregivers of color. She worked closely with Maya, turning her guilt into action, her regret into reform. A year after the verdict, Maya stood before a congressional committee, testifying about the hidden epidemic of abuse in the home healthcare industry. The hidden camera footage from her time at the Harrington estate played on screens around the chamber, the visual evidence more powerful than any words could be. "Dignity isn't a privilege," Maya told the committee, her voice steady and clear. "It's a right, and it doesn't depend on the color of your skin or the work you do." She thought of her father as she spoke, of his quiet strength, of his lessons about standing tall even when the world tried to make you small. She thought of Eleanor, finding her voice after decades of silence. She thought of the dozens of workers who had come forward, turning personal pain into collective power. The revolution hadn't started with protests or marches. It had started with one woman's decision to document the truth, to prove that sometimes the person you treat as invisible might be the very one bringing you to justice. And across the country, in homes where power had long gone unchecked, a message spread. Treat everyone with respect, because you never know whose story might be told next. In the end, Mrs. Harrington's greatest mistake wasn't her racism or her cruelty. It was her assumption that the woman she saw as nothing more than the help could never have the power to bring her down. She had looked at Maya and seen only what she wanted to see. Someone lesser, someone powerless. She had been wrong, and that mistake had cost her everything. Maya continued her work, moving on to new cases, new investigations, but she never forgot the lessons of the Harrington case, that justice sometimes requires patience, that dignity can be a form of resistance, and that change, real change, begins when we refuse to be invisible.